Hello there, Commonwealth from you. In a sea of Mario franchise remakes and one new princess title, could Zelda get something revealed and even released in 2024? The answer is yes, so be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press that notification bell. Tears of the Kingdom, despite no DLC, filled out 2023. Still, originally it wasn't even supposed to do any of that, as we all remember the last E3 Direct. 2021, with Nintendo's recognition of Zelda's 35th anniversary and the second teaser trailer of Breath of the Wild sequel, white 2022 on a black background. That is right, last year could have been something else, but Tears' delay in March 2022 changed that, and also left 2022 empty of any physical Zelda releases. Which makes me wonder, what was the original plan for 2023? I begin to believe The Wind Waker HD. Not only is that year's Zelda release, but the final Wii U to Switch port. This ambitious remake has sold less than 2.4 million copies since 2013. Not because it is a bad version, it sits at 90 on Metacritic, only beaten by the Ocarina of Time 3D remake when it comes to remakes and remasters. Instead, its lack of sales has only one explanation: being stuck on the Wii U. A system that barely sold 13.5 million units. Even while being stuck on the Wii U, The Wind Waker HD had a very impressive 17.5% attachment rate over the course of 3.5 years, around 5% below Breath of the Wild's 22.7% on the Nintendo Switch across 7 years. It is even closer to the attachment rate of 20.3% that the original Wind Waker had on the GameCube in the 2000s. These numbers right here tell how important the release of Wind Waker HD was for Nintendo, and especially producer Eiji Aonuma loves the sailing adventure he himself directed. No wonder, as the other two Zeldas he directed, Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess, trained him like no other. Now in 2024, he is similarly trained by producing Breath's and Tears' map of Hyrule, and needs a fill that can be put on the Switch with little to zero effort. And it is found in Nintendo's only true vintage wine of the 3D hero in green. That is until we hopefully get Ocarina of Time 4K in the future. Wind Waker HD, however, exists and is ready for another round where it can sell more than on the Wii U. Far more in fact, as 2021 Skyward Sword HD has sold 4.15 million copies to date, outselling Wii's Skyward Sword by 500,000. Now without the Wii U, but Switch, Wind Waker HD could sell closer to 4.43 million that the Wind Waker on the GameCube has sold to date. Why am I saying this? As financial results are crucial to Nintendo when deciding what they should give a second opportunity to, aka remake and remaster a Wii U to Switch port. Following this train of thought, that being attachment rate, I think the Wind Waker HD could be revealed in say a potential and rumored first party April or June 2024 Nintendo Direct. That being first party, since in truth, we haven't had a first party Nintendo Direct yet in 2024. The impact of the Wind Waker is truly impressive, not only in the regards we've mentioned so far, but also the fact that it is an open worldish title that served as inspiration along with The Legend of Zelda on NES and Skyrim for Breath of the Wild's open air concept. It is also the best aging 3D title by far, both when it comes to its art style and gameplay. One which offers a great opportunity for a massive payday before the next Nintendo system is out. More so if this one is backwards compatible, like we detailed in our previous video. Since, in that regard, this game might be upscaled to 4K come 2025. Not only that, but continue to sell like crazy for close to another decade. An opportunity it never got on the Wii U. All thanks to backwards compatibility of said successor. And in truth, it is just too genius to not take advantage of. Since what is Nintendo's lineup for the Switch in the second half of the year? Outside of Luigi's Mansion 2, well, if it is in the second half, and Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, it is rather unknown. Pokemon Legends ZA is 2025, which leaves Zelda and Metroid Prime 2 remastered, or finally even 4 to fill in the void in the fall left by Pokemon. But why do I think Wind Waker HD might have been planned for 2023 until Tears moved here? The anniversaries. 20 years after the Wind Waker's Western release, and on the 10th anniversary of that release, we got Wind Waker HD, which last year celebrated 10 years since the global worldwide release of this remake. And as we have seen also historically, the anniversary of Famicom 1986 Zelda doesn't matter as much for 3D Zelda remakes, but the anniversaries of the original games do, that being apart from Ocarina of Time's 3D remake. But if we look at the case of Wind Waker HD, Majora's Mask 3D, Twilight Princess HD, and Skyward Sword HD, all of them came out on the 10th or 15th anniversary of their original releases. With that said, a re-release of a remake or remaster shouldn't make sense, and has never been done before for any of the Zelda games. Add to that the fact that 2022 ended the tradition of the annual Wii U to Switch release, or pause. But what if that year was supposed to give us a break, so that we could have Wii U's Wind Waker HD adjusted for the Switch as the last Zelda course on the Switch in 2023, before Tears was, well, placed here. It is a real possibility, as this game is very much demanded and the only Zelda title that somewhat meets the requirement of open world and being not too outdated. Namely offering proper dual analog camera controls, the big new feature in Skyward Sword HD, and also no need to create an entirely new controller scheme as the Switch has exactly the same buttons as the Wii U. In addition, the late game pacing issues have already been addressed in 2013, and a swift sail was added to make the sailing more fun. Unlike Tears of the Kingdom, Wind Waker HD also offers a more challenging hero mode, one that isn't part of a paid expansion, as was the case for Breath of the Wild's Master Mode, and one where you could at any time during your quest change between normal and hero mode. The only thing that has to be altered or downgraded is the removal of the second screen Wii U experience. Nevertheless, this one wasn't in the original GameCube release, so this could be a more true version to that one. Oh, and well, Miiverse. Specifically, since most people will play it either way in undocked mode. But speaking of docked, if the switch to rumor speculation about a signal or physically non-attachable dock, as End envisioned, would turn into reality, plus, well, backwards compatibility, then the dual TV and system screen experience could be restored in 2025. And then potentially also have the game upscaled to 4K. But why not a dual pack with Twilight Princess HD? Since GameCube remasters, and well, remakes, are more valuable as single releases unless they are Mario. And the era of GameCube remasters on the Switch coincided with the end of the Wii U to Switch ports. And what was both on the GameCube, but also on the Wii U? That is right, the Wind Waker. For Nintendo, GameCube remasters and remakes are simply more valuable as single releases. Even Metroid last year sold only GameCube's first Metroid Prime instead of Wii's Metroid Prime trilogy. In the case of Zelda, collections of remade titles simply don't happen, and we only have two known instances, both from the early 2000s. The Triforce collection, with a lot of early Zelda games and the first two 3D games, that being on the GameCube, and the first multiplayer Zelda that Nintendo was uncertain how well would sell. To a degree that the first Four Swords game on the Game Boy Advance was bundled with the only official remaster of A Link to the Past. In fact, on the actual boxes and cartridges, Four Swords was promoted as an add-on to A Link to the Past, A Link to the Past, and Four Swords. A little bit like Bowser's Fury to Super Mario 3D World. This is definitely not the case for Twilight Princess HD, which is better saved for a future upgrade on a more powerful system, as the HD changes to that game were not as significant as in the case of the Wind Waker. We also need to consider that selling it together doesn't make sense financially for Nintendo, as they see both of them as $60 GameCube releases separately. Hence, the probability of a bundle of two of their biggest 3D Zelda titles and, well, remakes, even for $70 or even $80 is very low. Definitely not in the final year of the Nintendo Switch. Hence, the Wind Waker HD. That is unless it has, together with Twilight Princess HD, been pushed to the next system and changed name to the Wind Waker 4K. But in that case, or potentially other reason, what could have replaced it on the Nintendo Switch this year? A remake of the game that turns 20 in 24. Game Boy Advance's The Minish Cap. You know, a remake much like Link's Awakening, but maybe in a slightly different style. After all, The Minish Cap was on the Game Boy Advance, not the original Game Boy. But that is a bigger top-down Zelda topic that deserves a separate video. Instead, now is the time for you to share your thoughts on the last chance to get the Wind Waker HD on the Nintendo Switch, but also why the Minish Cap might push it and Twilight Princess to the next system? Sound off in the comment section down below. And if you haven't already, then be sure to press that like, subscribe and notification bell buttons with all notifications on to make this video more visible, and also show that you want a similar video on the Minish Cap soon enough. A big thanks goes to you for watching and to all our patreon.com/commonrealm patrons. Special shoutouts go to royal producers Zach Johnson and JC Funk, and heroes Holly Wolf, Cheryl and Garrett Hall. You rock, and please enjoy one or both of these two awesome videos.